Hi everyone, I'm Michael.
And I'm Patrick, and you're watching another episode of Star Wars News and Views. Today we're going to review Rise of the Skywalker. We just saw it last night, and I guess we're still pretty fresh.
5 years later, after we started this channel, we started it before Force Awakens was released in 2014.
In our video to go see Force Awakens, it was us walking through this door to go see it.
Was it? Were we living here?
Yeah. The first time, the beginning of the new Star Wars trilogy, and you were able to see the end of it.
So take a good pan around at all our friends that are here with us tonight.
Harley's there too.
Harley.
And now, here we are, episode 9. The saga's done, supposedly. Although we all know in 20 years they'll be doing more.
Yeah.
But it's been interesting, like, the hundreds of hours we've spent on camera discussing this.
Following it, and then, like, talking about every, like, little bit in regards to news and, like, you know, things that were progressing as these movies were coming out. And kind of, like...
Over 4 million views on our channel later.
Yeah. And it's just been us trying to like follow this series as it's been unveiling. We tried to record a lot of like news to have it like set in stone and like try to show what was going on behind the scenes of these movies, which is probably a pretty interesting tale in and of itself.
I have another book's worth of material there.
Yeah. We talked about it a bit last night right after the movie, and we kind of already have like a little bit of idea, but it's kind of still our first take on it. Haven't really looked up too much online, haven't watched it again or anything like that, so it's still pretty like new in our minds for the most part. And I gotta say, like, I still like it. It was a really good looking movie. It had some really cool freaking scenes in it. I guess this is gonna be spoiler filled, right?
Do you want it?
Yeah.
Well, let's start.
Well, we'll get to spoiler territory later.
We'll get to that at the end. We'll leave that for the end.
All the ships and everything look great in this movie. Seeing the star, that's not a spoiler because it's in the thing. Seeing the Star Destroyers like in the sky look freaking sick. There's a lot of really good looking parts in this movie for sure. I loved the way it looked.
Yeah. It's hard to... I almost feel like I need to see it again just because there's like so much to take in.
Yeah, they definitely gloss over a lot of parts in the movie.
Yeah, well, I think the most consistent criticism is that it's like kind of overstuffed, and it is.
Yeah.
That's the biggest problem with it, is that it's like people have said it's like 5 movies in one.
The first 20 minutes feels like fast forward of like last time on Star Wars, like all this stuff they're trying to catch you up on to like set up the rest of this movie essentially. And yeah, so that part, the pacing in the beginning, way too quick. They were trying to set up way too much stuff, I feel like, and it gets overstuffed for that reason.
Yeah, well, I would say, as someone who liked The Last Jedi and The Force Awakens more or less equally, I would say this is probably the least satisfying of the 3.
Yeah.
But it's a fun movie. I'm glad it exists, and like I was like largely satisfied. Overall, I would say it's a pretty good movie. Like in my opinion, all of the Disney Star Wars films are like pretty good.
Yeah.
I mean, I know Last Jedi has its haters, but like okay, whatever. But I'd say
it's still competent movie making for all of them.
Yeah.
They all look and are made well. I think they're like the acting and the production value are like really good still in the movies, and they're like entertaining to watch for sure.
Yeah, so I think the most interesting thing about the movie actually is to compare it to The Last Jedi, like as a sequel to The Last Jedi and what it did and didn't do.
Yeah.
I think that's actually the most discussion-worthy aspect of it, because, you know, people say The Last Jedi was sort of like a 90-degree turn from where J.J. Abrams was going with The Force Awakens, and it was, but I feel like that's also kind of overstated.
Yeah, and I also feel like the reasoning for that was a lot of the Force Awakens was kind of retreading the past, and this movie, The Last Jedi, was trying to like say, oh, we're done with the past, we're gonna start like a new series with new characters, start fresh, we don't want to just retread over the old ground. And then this movie, for better or worse, said, nope, we're going back to the old ground, and we're gonna do the exact same thing we did the last trilogy. So
I think that's my biggest problem, is that I actually wasn't really surprised by much in this.
Yeah.
Whereas The Last Jedi was like, oh, didn't see that coming, and I wasn't like, oh, that's so stupid.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, like, where are you going with this? This is interesting.
Yeah.
Like killing Snoke, it's like, all right, so J.J. Abrams presents Snoke in Force Awakens, and he's a hologram. He's like the Emperor, but not.
Yeah.
Who is he? Even J.J. Abrams is like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Someone else can figure it out.
Yeah.
And then Rian Johnson's solution, well, that's kind of boring. He's just the Emperor, but not. So let's kill him and have Kylo Ren become the Supreme Leader. Then that's a new dynamic. It's like, what if Darth Vader had killed the Emperor halfway through Empire Strikes Back? That's a game changer, and it's bringing it into uncharted territory.
Right.
And then Rian Johnson's like, nope, and also Palpatine is literally back.
You mean J.J. Abrams?
Yeah.
He's like, no, screw that idea. That was a bad idea. We're bringing back, Palpatine, and we're gonna like have, a similar redemption arc and these kind of things. So, I definitely don't like agree with that decision. I feel like it's a safe decision though, and I'm not like upset about it. I'm just not surprised, and it's kind of like a way to appeal a lot of fans that were upset that the series decided to go in a new route.
Yeah.
And I would say that after seeing this movie, it feels a lot like The Force Awakens, and it kind of almost feels as though The Last Jedi is now the one that stands out the most as being the most different, and that
Most
kind
unique,
of and that kind of sets off the pace of the trilogy. So it might have been a better idea to kind of have one coherent idea throughout the trilogy.
In retrospect, yes.
In retrospect now, only because they changed the director of Episode 9 and changed it back to J.J. Abrams.
Yes, only because J.J. Abrams sort of retreated back into the safe route. Like, I think, like, what Rian Johnson was setting up as the logical place to go with the sequel to The Last Jedi was not what we got here.
Yeah.
And I think that's sort of, I don't want to say a knee-jerk reaction to The Last Jedi, but it's a reaction nonetheless.
Right. So I guess to get into some spoilers now, if you don't want to hear anything about spoilers, turn it off. But we're going to talk about the Emperor. One thing that was surprising to me was opening crawl, the Emperor is back, and
It's
I guess.
Yeah. Whoa. Okay.
Okay. and I kind of even thought that J.J. Abrams' classic misdirection that the Emperor wouldn't be back, or that was kind of a little bit too like obvious that the Emperor is back.
It's like no, he's back.
Yeah, and it seemed like it was too obvious a direction for the whole series to go anyways. And it's like, nope, he's back. He's just back. Like, deal with it. And they kind of show a bit of the backstory. They showed off like Snokes and tubes and stuff, and they're trying to say that like the Emperor can regenerate, and there's these people working for him, and it's like a weird. It seems so like heavily handed and like comic booky to have this sort of like tube where you can just regenerate the Emperor and he just never died and stuff. Like, I don't know, it seems so.
Well, it's like on the one hand they kind of over-explained it, but on the other hand they didn't really explain it.
Yeah.
I don't really know how to like describe it.
I'd have to watch it again maybe to figure out.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
precisely.
there's so much that happens. It's like I don't really fully understand half the stuff that happens.
Yeah.
Like, I think one of the issues is like the first 40 minutes or so are like exposition on fast forward to set everything up. And I think this goes back to, again, not being really the logical follow-up to The Last Jedi, is The Force Awakens is all set up. It's a soft reboot, and that's great. You can only do that once, so it was fine. It was fun.
Yeah.
And I think, even all things considered, I think it's probably my favorite of the three, just because it's more rewatchable.
Right,
And the reason
yeah.
is because it doesn't have any responsibility.
Yeah.
It can just tell a fun story.
I think that was a detriment because in some ways it left off in a way where you were kind of forced to have The Last Jedi answer a lot of questions and in a way that seemed like they would be pretty easily answered from The Force Awakens, but you tried to change that direction a little bit.
Yeah, so The Force Awakens was set up for The Last Jedi. The Last Jedi, it was also set up for this final movie, but then when we get to the final movie, it like backtracks away from all. No, Luke is back, the Emperor's back, Kylo Ren is Supreme Leader, doesn't really figure into the story that prominently as a plot point the way I thought it would.
Right. So, yeah, I guess that was like, I would say as part of this trilogy, it really just seemed like they kept trying to go over, like, step on each other's toes when they were making the new movie and rewrite it. I will say, though, one thing about this movie, and one thing that I've liked about this trilogy the most, has just been Kylo Ren and Rey have like stolen the show pretty much the whole time. Kind of like the prequels is how I felt about Anakin and Obi-Wan for the most part. Were like some of the better parts were them together. In this sense, I kind of felt like these were the best parts of this. And in this movie, the Kylo Ren and Rey scenes are all like pretty good as well.
Yeah.
They're both the most interesting characters. I mean, Kylo Ren was my favorite character.
He's the most interesting character. He's the most three-dimensional, complex character in the series.
Right.
Or I mean, in this trilogy.
And we get to see resolution with him and his parents in this one. They get to eat. There's a few like fun nods, like Han saying "I know" when Kylo Ren's trying to tell him that like he loves him or whatever. He's
yeah,
like,
that was really unexpected. I was like, whoa, okay.
Yeah. It's in his memory though, so it's like not even like a Force ghost or anything like that. It's just like him dealing with it
I
internally.
wonder how much they paid Harrison Ford.
Yeah.
or did they just do like what they did with Carrie Fisher and just found some outtakes of him?
Maybe.
I wouldn't be surprised actually.
Yeah, I think they wanted to just have like all the main cast in this movie because it's the
just
end.
Because, so they could say, hey, they were all together in one movie.
So that's like, again, my criticism with this new trilogy is that it seemed like they were trying to get away from the original cast and make a whole new like Star Wars series. And a lot of times, especially with the J.J. Abrams one, he's like, no, let's go back to that and like have this stuff that everyone likes. And it's like, it's kind of hard for me to maybe criticize because that's kind of what I want to. I want some of the nostalgia grab and stuff, but it just kind of feels so disjointed and almost why make the trilogy if you're really just trying to cash in on people's nostalgia for these characters, right?
Yeah.
Like, they don't go far enough with it. The Last Jedi was like, let's go and make a whole new series, and then they're like, no, let's just keep all the nostalgia fun stuff in it. And one of the things I felt was kind of weird was like Rey fighting Palpatine. He's like shooting all this lightning at her, and she's like, oh, I've got one lightsaber, you know, I've got all the power of the Jedi. A second lightsaber. And then she like beats Palpatine that way. I was like, it's a little cheesy, I don't know. I think another part about it though is that Palpatine coming back, he tried to, I don't really know what his plan was realistically. Like, it seemed,
I know a lot of that stuff I still don't really understand.
his plan was to have like Rey come and kill him so that she would become like the next emperor and evil and stuff. And then that seemed to fall through because she's like, oh, I don't hate you. And which, I mean, he should have learned because that's what happened with Luke. Anyways, she's like, oh, I don't hate you, blah, blah. And then she kills him anyways, but she doesn't become evil. And I'm like, what? But that was what his plan was, wasn't it? For her to kill him? Like, what? One other complaint that I have about the movie for sure is they try to do a lot of cheap deaths in this movie, and they keep overwriting them, and I had no point I could tell if it was real or not. Mm-hmm. So it kind of like took the gravity out of it a bit. First it was like, oh, you know, like Chewie's dead. Oh, now he's not. C-3PO's gonna lose all of his memories, and then oh, now he's not. They're back again, and it's like, okay, and then it's like Kylo Ren got stabbed through the chest. Oh, she like healed him. He's back again. It's like, okay. Rey dies. Well, Kylo Ren heals her. She's back again. Okay, like I don't know at what point any of these deaths seem permanent, and like why even, I don't know.
So it sounds like we're complaining quite a bit. I think the most discussion-worthy parts of the movie are like the flaws, because otherwise it's just going to be us gushing over it for an hour. But yeah, overall it was a good movie. I would say, as someone like. Because some people hate The Last Jedi, which I don't get, but whatever, to each their own.
Yeah.
As someone who really liked that, I would say this is the weakest of the three.
Yeah.
It has the most obvious, well, to me, people would say, you know, The Last Jedi has the most obvious flaws.
It was a visually appealing movie, and there's a lot of action in it, which I liked. Again, I liked all the main cast. I've always liked this new cast.
Yeah.
Finn had, like, not too much role in this movie,
Not
actually.
really.
Because they kind of, like, they finished his arc in the last one.
His arc is in the first film. In Force Awakens, he's a stormtrooper that defects and...
Well, out of fear, and then I think in The Last Jedi, he gets to the rebel cause.
Yeah.
He gets changed to, like, actually want to fight against the Empire.
Yeah, because he's running away at the beginning.
Yeah.
Right? So.
And then in this movie, they didn't really progress too much with him, but he was still good in it. It was still fun. Yeah, and I guess what happens with Poe Dameron, he becomes like the leader of the Resistance at a certain point, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, that's like sort of a natural conclusion to his arc, I would say. Like,
yeah.
You know, the second film in The Last Jedi was like him trying to understand how to become a responsible leader,
as opposed to just being like a flight pilot.
Shot, yeah, whatever.
Although the one thing with this movie is at the end, he just goes in an X-wing on his own again, and it's like, why would you send the leader of your resistance in like a single pilot ship by himself?
And it kind of undermines that whole arc of like, okay, I can't just be, you know, a hotshot pilot. I have to think of the larger picture.
Yeah.
It's like, nope, just going in hot.
Yeah. It's a little silly, but other than that, though, like besides that one point about it, I feel like he does try to like become a leader in this one, and he does do a bit from that standpoint, which is kind of good. So we get to see those two characters at least sort of conclude a little bit more. Rey has a good conclusion for sure. She goes at the end and puts away the like Skywalker lightsabers, Oh, one thing that I did like, it was kind of cool to see Leia actually try to train as a Jedi, which we never really found out about until this movie.
Yeah.
And I do like that she at least attempted it. We don't really get an explanation as to why she stopped or anything like that, other than her, like, realizing that...
I was surprised that it never really, like, when I was watching the film, it never occurred to me that, oh, yeah, Carrie Fisher's dead and this is, like, reused footage.
Yeah.
It was like, it felt like it fit in very natural.
Yeah, which is good I'm glad they were able to do that.
Like, looking back on this whole trilogy, this whole phase of, like, Disney acquiring the license to Star Wars, and, like, I think one of the things that is most notable of it is that it kind of doesn't... They haven't figured out what to do with it.
Yeah.
Because this trilogy, each one was kind of made up on the spot. Every single film has had people fired and hired.
Yeah.
They're making movies, they're making spin-offs, they're making a TV show. The spin-offs are no more, the trilogy's over, and it was kind of a hodgepodge, and...
Now they're just doing Disney Plus.
And now
Plus
Disney
shows.
Plus is the new thing, so for now they're doing that.
Yeah, is that the Obi-Wan supposed to be
next year? I think they're filming.
So I think the one thing, it was a lot of flip-flopping on this series, and it would have been
experimenting. Like they're trying to figure out how do you run this franchise without George Lucas. So I think the problem, like Kathleen Kennedy gets a lot of flack, but I would say it's not her. It's really, is Bob Iger still in charge? Whoever the higher-ups at Disney are, because they're like, hey, we paid $4 billion for this shit. We want to make our money back, not tomorrow, yesterday.
Yeah.
So get on that.
It's making the money, though. Like, I think this movie already, I saw today, made $44 million last night alone.
Yeah,
and that was
know.
a Thursday. It's like, it's crazy.
But so that's why they're like, okay, we need to have a new trilogy. We need it now.
Yeah,
now.
Yeah.
Well, wait, we have to, like, even the screenplay writing process of The Force Awakens was so last minute and rushed. And it's like, don't worry about that later, the other movies. We'll figure that out when we get there.
Yeah.
Just get this out there. Pump it out.
Yeah.
Get these spin-offs. Get the TV show. Get this and that. It's so much.
And it was rushed, yeah. I think, this trilogy seemed to be a bit of a mess. They're still good in it, though. I still like it. I think, like, no matter what, it's a good-looking Star Wars trilogy. You know, I still enjoy watching them, so...
The original trilogy was made up as they went as well.
Yeah.
That's the other thing. People say, oh no, George Lucas, he had the big story and then he kind of cut it down into a third for the... No, that's not how it went. He made... The only script he ever had was the film we now call A New Hope, which was episode 1. It wasn't episode 4, it was episode 1.
Yeah.
And then they changed it to Saga 1. But the first draft of Empire Strikes Back, or the story treatment, it's episode 2, The Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah.
And then they made Darth Vader wasn't even Luke's father. And then when they made Darth Vader into Luke's father, like, okay, now it's episode 5.
Right.
And we have this backstory about how Luke's father became. And so it was, and then it was supposed to go into episode 9, but then the production of Empire Strikes Back was a mess. And George Lucas was like, screw this, I want to just end it with Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
And that'll be the conclusion. And so that's why, you know, if it ever seems like maybe the original trilogy was made up as they went, it kind of was.
Yeah.
But it did have a natural arc to it.
It did.
And I think this one does in some ways too. But in some ways, the seams are very apparent, which I would say is also the case with Return of the Jedi. Oh, there's a second Death Star. Oh, Leia is Luke's sister for some reason.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
Yeah, and then, like, just having a whole part in the middle with all the Ewoks, where it's kind of like, everyone complains about them. But yeah, it was, like, not the best part of the movie.
Yeah.
It was probably one of the worst parts of the
There's a lot of problems
trilogy.
with Return of the Jedi, and I feel like this movie is no exception. The only third act that actually felt like they had a story that was like a logical place was Revenge of the Sith, and that's because all the backstory, like episode 1 and 2, were just sort of like
filler almost. There was nothing major that happened in those that you needed to know. It was like the whole trilogy of the prequel trilogy
is
just
episode
told
3.
was in episode 3. I would say this movie is worth seeing. I liked it. It is probably my least favorite of the new trilogy, but you know, it still feels like a conclusion, and I like enjoyed it.
I think like The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi had like maybe more passion put into it because it was like the type of movie that each of those people wanted to make.
Yeah.
Whereas this one was saddled with responsibility.
Yeah.
And that's why it kind of seems like maybe it's going through the motions a little bit.
Right.
If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely would like to see it again, just because there's so much to unpack in this movie.
Especially, there are just so many scenes where it's like goes so quickly and they kind of gloss over stuff, but like it was really important stuff, so you have to kind of go back to rewatch it. Which, yeah, I do want to see it again, and I probably will see it in theaters again just to get some more, to see some stuff that I missed. It happens so quickly, you know.
Yeah.
You can only catch some things, you know.
So overall, yeah, I would say it's a good but flawed movie, and I think that's like what people have been saying about all the Disney movies.
Yeah.
It's good, but really, like, there's only 2 great Star Wars films. A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back are great. And then there's 2 bad Star Wars films, which are The Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones. And everything else is kind of like good, not great, flawed, but overall worth watching. And so if you're to map it up on a bell curve, that's the way it should be.
Yeah.
You got 2 great ones on one end, 2 bad ones on the other end, and everything else is kind of in the middle.
Yeah.
Which is like, it's good, not great, flawed.
Yeah.
You should enjoy it.
I'd say this is on the lower side of the middle one, but it's still good. Still watch it. A lot of the Star Wars movies, except for the 2 really good ones, have like a bunch of like bad or like, you know, merchandise trying to sell scenes and stuff like that where they're not very good.
Was a total cash grab.
But peppered in are really good scenes, and peppered into this movie are really good scenes as well. So, you know, there's a lot of good things to watch in it, and it's definitely worth seeing for sure. I would like to rewatch it again.
And worth seeing on the big screen.
Yeah, and I would agree for that for sure. Yeah. It's definitely worth seeing in theaters.
Yeah. So anyway, if you guys have seen it, and I'm sure most of you have, feel free to leave your thoughts, whether you loved it or hated it. I feel like sort of the reception has been mixed to positive, and I feel like that's sort of how I feel about it. It's like I have positive vibes, but also sort of mixed feelings, just because there's just a lot going on, and it's obviously not the most graceful handling of it.
Right.
I'd say.
But I feel like things concluded, and it feels nice to kind of see an end to them, realistically.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like it's over. Okay,
Yeah.
we can move on. All right, so thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you next time.